Welcome to Into the Words, a podcast from the Highlights Foundation Retreat Center. Today in the cabin is our dear friend, Traci Chee. Welcome, Traci.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Traci, we've been so thankful to have you here for summer camp mentorship. Before we get into talking about your experience here at summer camp, first, will you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and your writing?
Okay, well, I'm Traci Chee. I'm the author of the young adult fantasy trilogy, the Reader Trilogy. The last one just came out last November. It's called The Storyteller. So I'm starting to move on to some different things that I'm really excited about. Let's see, I've been writing since I was in high school, and it's always involved magic of some kind. So kind of fantasy is where I'm most comfortable. And I think that's because where I grew up in California, in the foothills, the gold country, there was this sense that any mountain you climbed, you could point at something and say, I want to climb that, and you would feel kind of like you were the first person there. It had this untouched, unspoiled feeling of discovery that was really an important part of my childhood, and I think has filtered out into my writing as well.
Pulling from what you know. Fantasy, YA, and you said you finished this trilogy that came out in November. So what, are you working on another YA now?
I am, and I am unfortunately not allowed to talk about it yet, but I am excited because it is different. I spent 10 years writing and revising and publishing the Reader Trilogy, so it's really exciting for me to kind of dive into something new, to be in a different world.
And where are you in that process? Are you still drafting or are you revising?
In revisions on that, and so in between doing revisions for that, I'm also kind of cooking up a new idea.
Oh, wonderful. I can't wait to hear more about it. So talk to us a little bit about your experience at the Highlights Foundation with the summer camp mentorship. First, just kind of general impressions, and then we'll talk about your keynote, which was so great.
I have really loved working with my mentees this week. It has been kind of one of the highlights of Highlight Summer Camp for me, because it gets me out of my own head and it helps me connect with other writers and see kind of what energy they're bringing to something, and then to see them kind of develop their ideas and come to something new and be really excited about it. And one of the things we focused on yesterday in our last sessions was, how can you keep this momentum going? Like, what do you need to take with you? And so kind of seeing that and really hoping that they just keep going, they keep pushing and carry this beautiful, I've been calling it fecund energy, productive, creative energy from Highlights back into their regular lives has been really cool.
How did that, so did you read these manuscripts in advance, or you got them when you were here?
I read samples, 20-page samples in advance, and made some notes that we started to talk about in our first session, but then some of them came with something brand new that we worked on during this week, and then some of them realized that they had been stuck on their project for a while, so we kind of opened up new avenues for them to keep writing and exploring.
Wow. So, and then was it every day or every other day? I forget how often you meet with
We met every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in individual sessions, and then every so often they'd come up to me during lunch or breakfast and just kind of chat about something really quick.
And I wonder, is there one example you can give of progress or how you saw a writer develop across the week?
One example.
Or a generalization of what you saw in progression?
Something I really loved watching was all of the writers here kind of come out of their shells. I would ask them, what are you working on at the beginning of the week? And they would give me like a quiet answer. Like, I write picture books, or, I write middle grade. And then as the week went on, when I asked this question, like, how did your day go? How did your workshops go, or your one-on-ones? And they would start to tell me about their projects. Like, it was like everyone was flourishing as writers. And that was my favorite, I think.
Ooh. They're kind of the magic of the Highlights Foundation, the time to actually focus on their writing and be surrounded by other writers.
Yeah, and like this confidence.
Opening.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to hear that. So talk to me a little bit about your keynote. It was so emotionally powerful for me to hear. So will you just give us a little kind of a synopsis of what you spoke about?
Yeah, so the title was Art and Industry Finding a Balance, maybe. And the idea for that came because since I've been in this industry, have been trying to figure out how to make it sustainable. I love writing. It is kind of the one thing I wanted to do my whole life, and I want to do it the rest of my life. But I mean, it's difficult. It's often very lonely. It's full of rejection. And so I have been grappling with this for years. And when I was thinking about talking to another group of writers, I thought, I'm probably not alone in feeling this way. Probably other people are struggling with these things as well. And so I wanted to extend a hand to them and say, look, I'm here too. We're all here in various ways. And this is how I'm trying to keep going and how I'm trying to find, or not find, because I had the joy originally, retain, like hold on to the joy and the love of writing when it gets really, really difficult to do it in a business.
Yeah, and I think the way you talked about it, you were so vulnerable, like you shared so much of yourself. I think it helped the students listening really connect and understand, oh, I'm not alone in this idea of writing and the effort that it takes. The other piece that really struck me was your kind of description of the difference between being a writer and being in the business of publishing and how that all plays out.
Yeah, it's different. I was thinking about before I got an agent or a book deal, writing was my own thing. It was me and the page. But then once I started to get into the business side of book publishing, there's a lot more voices. It's not just me and the page anymore. And sometimes these voices aren't that interested in kind of the artistic side of the process. They're more interested in the product. Not always, but certainly sometimes it can feel that way. And so, yeah.
And just the realities of publishing is a business that has to make money, and there are lots of pieces involved. I think you laid that out quite well, just explaining how there's more. Once the writing starts in that publishing world, there are a lot more pieces to it. And then I think you had a couple of breakout sessions. Tell me a little bit about those.
So my 2 breakout sessions that I did were the same. They were called Attention, Image, and Voice, Attention, Image, and Language, Developing Narrative Voice. And so I hear a lot that an agent or an editor, someone in publishing, isn't connecting with the voice of a story. Or I've heard people say, voice is so important, or I really like voicey books. But I haven't seen a lot of kind of definition on what that means. Voice is kind of this vague concept. And so if you, like me, struggle with how do I bring out a voice, how do I make this a voicey book to make it appeal to agents or editors or readers, how do I do that besides just keep banging my head against this wall? And so what I wanted to do, because what I love about craft is kind of breaking it down into like the nitty-gritty components, is study exactly what goes into making a voice. And that is things like the attention of where the narrator's attention goes, or the images that a narrator brings out, or the very specific word choices or sentence constructions that a narrator uses. And these are things that maybe we have studied, right? Figurative language, we have studied it in English classes, but haven't really thought about so much how to apply that to writing. So I wanted to really dig into those pieces. Both of my sessions went long because I tried to cram in too much because there's just so much to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Just The way you describe that makes me think about one of the things I love about the Highlights Foundation, where we're able to talk about craft. And it sounds like you were able to really dissect a piece of craft, one of those really important pieces of craft, in a way that students could come away with a much broader understanding.
Yeah, and things that they could apply to their works in progress and future works. That's always the goal.
Well, thank you. Switch gears one more time. Talk to me a little bit about your writing practice or habits, if you even have any.
Yes, I am a person who loves routine and kind of the familiar, so I love writing rituals or writing practices. I like to wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and then in a leisurely way, not a hurry, not like, oh, I better get to work, it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Just, when it feels time, sit down with a cup of English breakfast tea, and it's gotta be English breakfast tea, nothing else will suffice. And then kind of start work in the morning, and work until my brain kind of starts to fizzle out. And I've been doing this a while, so I know when I'm just kind of staring at the screen, the words are not coming, and then that happens at about 90 minutes to 2 hours on a good day. Sometimes it's 15 minutes on a bad day. And then I kind of like to get up, stretch, get a cup of water my plants, do something a little bit different to get my brain not as focused on the words, but to have them in the background still, and then get back to work, and then repeat this pattern throughout the day. Sometimes it's a dog walk that I need for a break, because the act of walking, I find, like some people get their best ideas in the shower.
Sure.
It's dog walking for me. That movement of like having to focus on something, walking the dogs, but not focus on the words, but still have them able to be churning in the back. I like.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so how do I ask? What's next? You've kind of alluded to you're working on a project. And are you, I guess, what's happening in the next couple of months from a writing perspective, a traveling perspective?
So for the next couple of months, I am hoping to wrap up that project I can't talk about, and then really kind of do a deep dive into the new one. So I haven't included a lot of travel during that time because I'm someone who likes routine and the familiar. I hope to be home and really just doing, 5 days a week at the computer, walking the dogs, and kind of getting a whole bunch of that project out, because one of my writing goals for this year is to write a significant portion of that project.
Wow. Okay. And do you have any preconceived notion of how you'll tackle that project? Are you throwing words on a page? You outlining first? How will you?
So I like to try something challenging and different with every project that I tackle, and this one is the most challenging plotting wise. And that's saying something, because I had multiple timelines in the Reader trilogy. So this one has this kind of twisty, braided kind of plot that I actually asked one of our other faculty here, Tiffany Jackson, to help me out with. Because I was like,
cool.
Tiffany, please, I have no idea what to do with this one plot point. And she sat down with me and we chatted for it felt like a while, and she just kind of worked through like what would be the most powerful here. How can we kind of connect this to everything else in a cohesive way? It was really neat.
I love it. Well, Traci, thank you so much for joining us at the Highlights Foundation and on Into the Words. We are dedicated to continuing our 35-year history of providing the space, the conversations, and the nurturing that goes into making great stories for children. Thank you for everything you do to support the Highlights Foundation, but more importantly, thank you for what you do to support that belief that children are the world's most important people.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.